Alright, now we're in the section called completing the game. So we saw that how we could add state to a React component, as seen here in the constructor, and then modify the constructor with this.setState with new values. State is important for a React component to remember what has happened to it, to remember its state. Now, our next problem is, with each square remembering its own state, how do we know the state of the game? And the answer is, we could know it, but it's really hard. With each square keeping private its clicked state. How do we switch from X to O? How do we know who won? So that's the next problem. And the solution is found in lifting state up. And so this really kind of replays what will typically happen in a development environment. You set up your component, you have a private state, and then you realize that state needs to be known in a broader context. So that's what's happening in the next state, in this lifting state up. So it modifies the board to have the state of each individual square. So the board component is going to have its hands on the state of all the squares that it creates. So it's going to, in turn, have a state of its own. So before it didn't have a state, and now it will. So we follow the pattern. Constructor props, we always do super.props, we set it this way, and then the initial state component is set directly. This.state is set to this JavaScript object, which will contain an array of squares is an array of 9, all filled with null. So the initial non-click state. So then, instead of passing a number, which we did before, to the render state, we pass it its this.state squares, right? So what's going to happen in props is that'll be set to null for each individual square as we use this array here. So now we have a mechanism to remember our click state in a broader context, that is, within the board. Now, if we notice, there's no behavioral difference here because we haven't changed anything in square yet. So we don't have any changes in its behavior, but we do have the mechanism in place to finish the game because we now have the ability to remember to swap between X's and O's because this will have the knowledge to do that, the board, and we'll know when tic-tac-toe is in a victory state or in a win state because board will know those things. All right, let's do the next step to make sure that we can alternate between X's and O's, and we'll do that in the next video.